Mosaic Souls. Hey, Mosaic Souls, and welcome back to another Soul Nugget Sunday video. So, I felt compelled to talk about something that's been sort of on my heart because in my limited human interaction, I've been noticing a repetitive theme in the kinds of conversations I've been having with people. You guys can enjoy the nature of you that you see that I'm sitting around. I'm out here in nature trying to get in some sunlight, some fresh air, just enjoying life today. And nature is always where I come for reprieve, for remembering who I am, for healing, and water. Definitely bodies of water always helps as well. Must be my Pisces rising. But today I wanted to talk about when you start losing faith in humanity. So this is a love letter for the weary soul. And I find that a lot of times, especially with the current climate, I really don't follow politics personally because it's just not my preference. But it's never been my highest excitement or interest. But with I would say, the political climate as well as just the state of the world and what's going on in the world, there's a huge heaviness in the world. And I wanted to talk about, you know, ways that we can get out of this heaviness, and stay in our true selves, stay in the home of the truth of who we are, right? And so, lately I have been feeling it, the heaviness in the air, a collective aching, slow burning mistrust of everyone, a suspiciousness around everyone, right? So even though, I can sit outside in this nature and be surrounded by beauty, you know, even though I've worked to be a light being and be a light worker for so many years, I definitely have found myself slipping over the past few weeks. My mind that was really compassionate and loving and looking at possibility and seeing the good in all of humanity has started to become a little bit disillusioned and a little bit suspicious and guarded. And underneath all that, just feeling wounded and betrayed and just tired. And so I know that I'm not alone, which is why I really want to come and talk about this. And as you know, of the state of the world, and I don't feel like this is ever going to change, it's just the world that we live in. And that's why you got to choose what you want to focus on, choose which side of the fence you're going to play on. But the world is really heavy, and we're holding so much right now. So maybe you live in a neighborhood where you're constantly seeing a lot of struggle and survival and pain every day. And so that's tainting how you view the world, how you see life. Or maybe you've experienced abandonment or betrayal or heartbreak over and over and over again. People that you once loved and trusted are starting to show their asses or move to the dark side or just do janky ass shit, right? Maybe you just feel like you've given so much only to be met with like selfishness or envy or apathy, or people that you thought would be rooting for your success are secretly rooting for your demise or your failure. Or maybe you're like me, a light worker who's now feeling like your light has been a little bit dimmed or a lot of it dimmed. So if that is you, you know, and you used to feel hopeful, but now the world just feels dark, then this message is definitely going to be for you. And so, first, I want to just shed light on the fact that there's nothing wrong with you. And if you're feeling this way, this is something that many people are feeling, and maybe not many of us have the vocabulary or know how to talk about this stuff. As someone who actively works on myself, who's in therapy, who's had coaching, who is a coach, I talk about this hopefully with a level of eloquence and a level of education that can shed some light on what the heck is really going on. And I want to share that your sensitivity is really not a flaw, it's really a compass. And what you feel right now is really part of a larger spiritual warfare and spiritual shedding that's going on right now. So when you're starting to lose faith, I want you to be mindful not to panic, that you're not being tested, you're being initiated, if you will. You're being called to dive deeper, right? To no longer sort of live in a bubble, but sort of to deepen your knowing of who and what you truly are. So this disillusionment really isn't the end of your light, it's the deepening of it. It's not the shutting out of your light if you make sure that it's not. It's if you make sure that you don't let the heaviness of the world snuff out your light, but that it's just a deepening of your light, right? So whereas, hi ladies, how are you? Whereas, if you're just waking up to the darkness of the world, you're being invited to face the darkness with your own heart, right? The parts that hurt, grieve, or mistrust. Not to become bitter, but to become wiser. And not to shut down, but to learn to love with more intention. And love, sometimes loving with more intention means loving from a distance. Certain characters or entities or people can feel like they need a different place in your life, and that's okay. And maybe you're making space, cleaning out shop so you can make space for something bigger or better or smaller or intimate, whatever that is and looks like for you. So I want to share 7 ways to start returning back to your true selves, turning back to light without bypassing the darkness, right? I like to consider myself as a dark worker as well as a light worker as well. And when I talk about dark worker, it just means that I don't run away from darkness thinking that that's going to be the cure-all for everything. I'm not disillusioned from the fact that we live in a fallen world. I'm not disillusioned from the fact that there are negative entities just as much as there are positive entities. There are, what we would label as, good spirits as much as there are negative spirits, right? Positive spirits versus negative spirits. That's the yin and the yang of this planet. That's the polarity of this planet. And so, like, number one is witnessing the pain without becoming it, right? Let your let yourself like really feel what's real. So don't suppress cynicism when it arises or grief or anger, but allow yourself to feel it in a safe and space way. I talked about this in my rage thing. I'll link it above here. I talked about sacred rage and how it's important to allow us to feel that whatever we've been feeling, but also not to just stay there, to allow it to move through like the wind, and the wind is carrying, letting that energy move, right? So the first one is to remember to let yourself feel what you're feeling, but remember that you are not the pain, but you are the one witnessing it. You can say something like, I am feeling betrayal, I am not betrayal. Or I am noticing, negativity, but I am not negative, right? So this helps you to process the emotion without fusing into it, without becoming an embodiment of it, right? I'm feeling distrustful, but I am not mistrust, right? Second step is really to release betrayal and rage safely, right? So unprocessed, like the first part is just recognizing that you have these emotions, that you are experiencing the polarity of emotions and of humanity, but you're not these things. You're beyond these things. The second one is to release what you're feeling, your emotions safely. So unprocessed betrayal or mistrust or suspicion really turns into that, right? And it becomes an embodiment, and unexpressed grief turns into numbness. So one of the ways that you can start to feel it and express it privately, safely, and freely is to journal your rawest thoughts without censorship, and burn the pages if you feel the need to. Another way is that you can scream into a pillow or dance it out, do some, what is that called? I can't remember. It's not called rage dancing, it's called something dancing. But just dancing, just rapidly, and just letting that energy flow through you. Turn on some, considered like darker music and just rage it out. Or cry in the shower. Allow yourself to feel betrayal, to feel, the abandonment, or feel whatever you're feeling in whatever way that you're feeling. Like, why, I went to an event yesterday with my mom, and one of the ladies mentioned something about, our one of our world leaders, and why is this person in office and stuff, and you could feel like the deep betrayal that she felt. And my mom was like, in her natural wise but swordmanship fashion, was like, what's the point of like going there? This person is already in office. You might as well accept it and move on. Like, what are we going to do from here? Like, we can't, you can say, why is this person, they shouldn't do it. Well, what are you going to do about it now, right? So my mom has a way of sometimes being very sharp with her tongue. She's a very compassionate person, but sometimes the way she says things can be very like cutthroat and dry, and I have that too. But anyways, I thought that was funny. But back to the ways that you can release the emotions. Take a ritual salt bath, right? And let the water hold your grief, or if you get a chance to, swim this summer, go into the lake or the ocean or the pool and just imagine yourself releasing all the emotions that are going on within you and letting yourself release the grief or the abandonment or the fear or anger or jealousy or rage or whatever you're feeling, right? Your nervous system really needs a release valve, right? So that you can feel and purge what you're feeling. So give yourself permission to do that. And the third step is to create beauty that you can touch, right? So social media, the news, and the online echo chambers can skew your perception. And a lot of times we don't realize how being addicted to social media, whether that's on Instagram or YouTube or Facebook or TikTok or whatever, sorry, that it can skew our perception, especially if we have a tendency to like negative things or follow or save things where people are talking about how this person did this person. We end up unconsciously training the algorithm to send us more negativity, and to send us more denser frequency type energies. And so, because of that, I definitely encourage you to do a social media detox. I'm definitely doing one for the remainder of the summer and just having a limited access, like only using it to like post things, not really to try to engage or like scroll and see what else the world is doing, because it does definitely skews your perception and how you see each other, because there are definitely agendas going on right now, several agendas in the matrix that are skewing how we see each other, how we view one another, which is perpetuating this myth or perpetuating this story of mistrust, perpetuating the story of, disillusionment or distrustful people or abandonment or suspicion, or negativity, and because that, whether it has comes down to relationships, men against the women wars that are going on, especially in melanated communities, because that's the community I'm part of, but that's going on right now. And there's so many like different things that are going on in the world that if you get caught up in social media, you're going to keep perpetuating that story. And I talked about it in another video, which I'll link above here too, about how to stay in a high vibrational frequency. So, if you're choosing to detox from digital content, which is definitely a wise choice, I want to invite you to start replacing it with real world nourishment. And that means talking to a child, right? Talking to your children, if you have children, or your niece or nephews, or your little cousins, right? And usually they have, if they haven't been skewed, because some of these children out here be like, just as negative as adults, because they're just little sponges picking up whatever they're, soaking in or surrounded with. But if you have the privilege of talking to a child who hasn't been tainted yet, right? Or talking to an elder who has more wisdom, who's been there, done that, and still chooses to be in the light, or talking to a gentle soul in real life, right? And talk about these things, and not to like, you can vent, but like try to have people who you can vent to, but also people who are on a higher vibrational frequency, who choose to see the light and love in life and choose to enjoy life, right? Sit with a plant or go out in nature, paint something or create music or write a poem or read a book, you know, decorate a corner of your room or your house, or, create an altar, to your higher self, to your ancestors, to who you see yourself to be, right? Build little micro worlds of peace, love, and joy around you, little altars of hope in your life, especially if you feel the heaviness of the world. We need places of reprieve so that, we can feel more grounded and not feel like life is so heavy all the FGD time, right? The fourth step is to really believe in a few and not the many, right? So if trusting humanity feels too big right now, don't force it, right? That's not where you're at. You're not at the capacity, and just allow yourself to be where you are. And instead, just notice one kind, redeemable soul today. Was it the grocery person who bagged your groceries, who said, "Have a nice day," and said it with a smile genuinely? Or the person who, checked you out when you're getting gas, who smiled at you? Or the person who opened the door for you when you're leaving the grocery store? Or, was it, your mom who called you with, just checking in on you to make sure you're alive, or your partner who said something positive to you today, or your little kid who noticed a butterfly or a roly-poly on the floor or a ladybug. Notice this kind, gentle moments and start to focus your mind there, because our minds are innately built to have a negativity bias. And so the more that we can positively build gratitude cycles in our mind and ways of looking at the planet and being grateful for the things that we do have and focusing on the positivity in the world, the more we're going to attract that. And so let your heart soften just a little and find a reason to say, you know, hi. Maybe not everyone is lost. Maybe someone still cares, right? Sometimes rebuilding trust starts with just one connection at a time, right? Noticing that not all of the world is gone to hell, shot to hell, right? A hell in a handbasket, right? It's not all dark and dim. There are kind moments, and even in the darkest people that we see, or and I don't even like the word darkest, because that, anyways, even in the most negative people we see is more so what I mean, is that they even can exude positivity if we are vibrating on a certain level, so they have to match our level, or they just kind of remove themselves from our environment. And so that's sort of like that power struggle, but that's the power play of, energy is whatever you're vibrating is what you're going to consistently attract. So start to vibrate on a higher frequency and focus on on the positivity, right? And one of the things, and I'll share some other things. So the fifth thing that you can do is to grieve the old you who lived in the bubble. So maybe you miss the version of you who was lighthearted, hopeful, or naive and trusting. It's okay to grieve her, him, them, she, he, they was beautiful, right? But that that part of you was also innocent in a way that you've now outgrown, and your heart didn't die, right? You're still here. It just had to grow up and evolve, right? So you're no longer just a light worker who sees the good in everyone. You're also becoming a dark worker, a soul warrior who can hold the light and the dark and still choose love, right? You can still choose love even in spite of all the darkness in the world or all the negativity in the world. The sixth step is to create a ritual that really grounds you in the light, right? So try this daily or weekly ritual to reroot yourself in peace. You can light a candle or just go out and feel the sun in your skin and say aloud, I am light. I choose to return to love, right? I think a good book that I had start reading was Return to Love by Marianne Williamson, a good read. But place one hand on your heart and one on your womb or your belly and breathe. And then ask yourself, your higher self, what do I need today to feel safe and soft? What do I need today to feel love? And I did that earlier this week and earlier this morning, and this rising, and one of the things that my higher self was telling me was joy. We need to feel more joy, more pleasure. How many of us don't feel pleasure on a day-to-day basis? How many of us, our pleasure is how many thumbs up and thumbs down we got on our latest Facebook post, and it's just like, we got to do better, you know what I mean? Like, if you can't talk about an actual real world interaction that you had, or even just something you created that day, even if it was like a little stick figure with a smiley face, or something that you did that was actively you in the real world, then you have to look at your habit patterns, because a lot of times technology is kind of usurping our energy and our attention, which is really sucking away at our life force energy. And another thing you can do in this section is to write down three things that are good in this world, right? Even if the three things that are good in this world, if the sky is blue and the sun is shining and the trees are beautiful and green and blossoming and the wind is blowing, right? It could be three simple things, or my bed felt really soft today, or, I love how it feels when the wind blows and it's really hot and muggy. And then the seventh thing to do is to let support in, spiritual or human. You don't have to carry this heaviness alone. A lot of us are feeling it. Talk to a therapist, a healer, or a spiritual mentor. Feel free to reach out to me at divineearthschool.com/call to book a call, or divineearthschool.com/align to book an alignment session if that resonates. But utilize your support system surrounding you. Create a support system if you don't have one. Call in on your ancestors or your divine source or divine team, or join in on a small circle of kindred spirits, right? There's spiritual communities, whether that be a church or that be an online community that's spiritual community, or physical actual community where people still gather in person, or finding something on Eventbrite or group, not Groupon, what's that other thing called? I don't know. But it's that other thing where you can go find groups for different things. If you want to join a hiking group or something where people are doing something positive to feel love and joy, peace on a day-to-day basis. And let people hold space for you, even if it's just one person, and let the divine remind you that you aren't alone. Because with all this heaviness, it can be feel very isolating when you feel that you can't trust anybody, when you feel that everybody is shit, when you feel like everybody is just shitty people, or and then you kind of feel isolated, right? Connect with people who love you or who you love, even if it's just once every 2 weeks or whatever, and having a genuine conversation. And so my final words is that this is really a sacred threshold and not a breakdown, even though it can feel like one. And you're not going crazy and you're not broken. Once again, you're crossing a sacred threshold, one where your world view is being revised and revitalized and recalibrated for you to see the totality of the world that you come incarnated in, right? So you're becoming a deeper, wiser, more embodied version of your light. And not because you ignore the pain, but because you face it. And that truly is powerful. Let me show you the geese. They're saying hello, coming over to feed themselves. Hello. So, if you're feeling like you've lost faith in humanity, I invite you to not rush to fix it, but try to follow some of these steps and sit with it. Grieve, cleanse, heal, cleanse your body for sure. I know that eating certain foods can cause us to feel darker, denser energies. I notice that if I eat animal products in general, which I steer clear of majority of the time, 95% of the time, I definitely feel darker, denser frequencies personally. So you have to figure out what works for you. This is why I'm such a proponent of the plant-based diet, because plants just generally naturally have a higher vibrational frequency. But cleanse your body, cleanse your space, cleanse your mind, cleanse your heart, and slowly with intention, start choosing life again, start choosing love again. You're not going to the negative side or the evil side, right? You're just learning to carry the flame through it. So if this resonated with someone, I invite you to share this with someone else who's carrying this weight as well. You're not alone, and we're really healing together. So, as always, flow with what feels good and let go of what doesn't. Because you are divine. You are a divine being, and your soul knows exactly what you've come to explore and experience. And if you are looking for more support, someone to add to your support team, feel free to visit me at divineearthschool.com/call to book your individual breakthrough session to see how working with me in a deeper fashion can help you to create more light and love in your life, more joy and creative expression in your life. Visit me at divineearthschool.com/call to book your complimentary breakthrough session. Or if you would like to see how it is to work with me on a one-on-one fashion, go ahead and book an alignment session at divineearthschool.com/align. And on this call, we can really dive into whatever it is that you're traversing and that you would like more clarity upon, and helping you to really come back into alignment with who you truly are and your life's vision, your soul's purpose, your soul's mission. So I hope this message finds you well. And remember, what you conceive is what you'll receive. What you expect is what you'll get. And however you feel is what will become real for you. So vibrate higher, and I will chat with you guys next time. Peace, love, and light.